Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to do a little video on how to do a European mount by boiling the head. You're going to have some kind of setup. I use propane for a consistent flame, and with a little stand, a little fryer stand, and a big metal pot, which I got full of water, which I got to get boiling here soon because it takes a little while to heat all that up. And this has to be a strong enough metal that your flame after so many hours doesn't melt through and water goes everywhere. So that's important. Okay, so now I'm going to talk quickly about the tools that I use for assisting on cleaning this head, because unfortunately it doesn't just clean itself completely by just boiling the head and then being done. However, there are things that you can use to help it. So this right here is a pack of borax, and I'm going to pour this into my water. I've never really used an exact measurement. I always just pour a pretty decent amount of borax into the water for the head. It's just something to help the meat come off the bone a little easier. Borax is available really anywhere. You can get it at Walmart, Amazon. This little 4-ounce pack is actually from Amazon. It's only like $6 or something, so that's what I went with. So I'm going to be pouring the borax into my water here shortly while I'm waiting for it to boil. I got a knife, a lighter for starting my propane, some pliers, and some needle nose pliers for getting into some hard to reach places. And then I also got a little piece of wire here that I use for what I call a brain hook. Got a little hook into it so I can go into the back and kind of fish out brains as I go. Today we're going to be European mounting my dad's 10-pointer. It's a nice deer. It scored 134 4/8 inches. So stay along today and I'll show you this process and we'll see how we go. Something else I want to talk about, if you have access to water, preferably a pressure washer. Mine is broke at the moment, so I have my garden hose with a spraying nozzle. Water will help rip through the skull and just kind of break some stuff up whenever you are cleaning the skull up. So it's a good idea to have a hose. So if you can see here, when I cleaned this deer and deboned it for all the meat, I went ahead and skinned the head while I was at it. I got as close as I could to the base of the antlers. The more you get off now, the better you'll be, the happier you'll be. So it's important to get as much off as you can. There's a little bit of meat back here that I could probably pick out a little bit harder, but I will say if you can get the eyes out, it'll help everything if you can get the eyeballs out. And just really the more you can get off this skull, the quicker the process goes. Also, friendly reminder and tip, your heads stink after a little while. So the quicker you get this done after you kill it, the better. All right, we should be getting fairly close here. It's pretty hot. No boiling bubbles, but there's steam coming off the water. Okay, so while I was waiting for my water to boil, or come to a boil, I decided to go ahead and take my eyeballs out. I think that really does make a huge difference if you get the eyeballs out first. Perk and bonus if you don't pop them, because then you don't get the brown nasty eye slime all over the inside. All right, so for the first time I think ever, I'm gonna actually put a stopwatch on this on total amount of time the deer head's gonna spend in water with the borax and boiling. All right, we are officially boiling. I'm gonna turn the flame down just a little bit so it doesn't get out of control. Okay, we're gonna grab the antlers, get the head, come in. Take my head to the pot. Couple things you got to kind of watch for. I'll talk them through as we go. I'm going to dip the head in. So here's the trick. You want the whole head to be submerged so that every part that needs clean gets cleaned. Boiling, if it's on the base of the antlers, it ain't going to hurt it. But as you can see, now my boiling is just barely going. So that's good, because you want to have enough water in your pot to submerge the whole head. But at the same time, you don't want to have so much and boiling so hard that you're bubbling out. Now that's going to happen, which is why I got all this cardboard down. Eventually, it just gets to be too much. A bunch of steam comes out and you evaporate. You take the head out a couple of times. It doesn't take much for your water to get low. So when that happens, I'll have to fill her up. So that takes some time. So keep as much heat in as I can. I place my lid, just a little crack out the back. The boiling timer has officially begun. Again, on this first go around, I'm going to give this head every bit of 1 hour on the boil and that's gonna end up cooking a ton of the skin and the cartilage to where that should just peel right off. So I'm gonna check back in an hour and we'll see how we do. As you can see, we're 25 minutes in. The only thing I've had to do really so far is I've had to adjust my flame knob, just how much propane's coming out, because you know, if you go too hot and too fast, you'll boil over. That's really the only thing I've had to do so far in the first 25 minutes. And I think I got it at a pretty good simmer, pretty good boil right now. All right, we're about 40 minutes in. I had to turn the heat up a little bit to bring my boil up just a little bit. Can't really, it's kind of hard to tell from here, but I had lost, oh, maybe an inch of water from evaporation from steam coming off the pot. But so far it's still looking good. Just something you got to kind of watch. All right, we're approaching our first hour. We're probably about 5 to 10 minutes out. And I just want to point something out. So I had a little bit of a boil over. My dog ran over to the neighbors, so I had to go tend to her. And while I wasn't looking, the boil over put out my flame, so it stopped for a little bit. So as you can see, it's got to heat back up. I would have said didn't stop for more than 5 minutes, and I should have my boil back here in a couple minutes, so it won't get the quite full hour of boil. Important enough to state that if you leave your head for a little while and it boils over, if you have a setup like this, that it could put your flame out and throw your times off. After the first hour, I usually scrape every 30 minutes and until I get pretty clean. There is a sweet spot when you boil it too long, the skull starts to get soft and it starts to break down. So I usually never do a skull for more than 2.5 hours. This is the longest I have done it. And again, this is where the borax or the baking soda, or you can research some couple of things online, but borax really does work good, whitens the skull. But that's where that really makes a big difference on helping get the meat and cartilage off a lot quicker. So after picking on the skull for about 15 minutes, I got a lot of the meat off the head, a lot of the cartilage out of the nose, and the toughest part is definitely getting the meat on the underside of the skull. Since there was so much, I got away as much as I could. I'm gonna put this back in the boiling water for another 30 minutes, soften this all up again, and go scraping again. So something I want to talk about real quick. So I just got the head back in after its first hour picking. The water, a lot had evaporated, and you know, when you pull the skull out, a lot of water left. So I turned the flame up pretty high to get the boiling level just back up to the antlers. Now right here, I'll have to watch it. I can tell it's already wanting to bubble over. So that tells me I'm gonna have to turn my fire down just a little bit or it'll bubble out and I'll lose more water. So it's kind of tricky going back and forth, but really you wanna just keep it at boil and you really wanna try to keep the skull covered the best you can. So I got my hose set up. I've lost enough water now where I want to put a little bit more water in here. So what's gonna happen is, in just a few minutes, I'm gonna take the skull out, and while it's out, I'm gonna keep it on a low boil, a low heat. I'm gonna add some fresh cold water out of the hose, and then while I'm scraping and scratching, that has time to reheat up and get back to boiling. All right, guys, we've hit our next 30-minute mark, so the head is boiled for 1 hour and 30 minutes. I'm gonna get this thing out of there, hit pause, and fill some water up, and then I'm gonna get to scratching a second time. All right, guys, we just got the head back in for what I think is gonna be the final time. I'll probably do this one for about 20 to 25 minutes. After this, I will hook up my hose attachment and spray the rest out because I got the big chunk of the cord out. I got a lot more cartilage out that second time, and a lot of the remaining meat that was on the bottom of the head the first time. It really did a good job coming out this time. Yeah, so if you do this correctly with the borax, this stuff really does come off so much easier. If you just use water, you're gonna scrape a lot harder and work your hands a lot more. And just go ahead and do yourself a favor, go to Walmart, order on Amazon, add some borax to your water, and everything cooks off that much easier. All right, guys, as you can see, about 1 hour and 47 minutes of boil time. Definitely don't want to go over 2, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to wrap this up, get this out of here, do a little last picking and a little spray down, and we'll see what we got. In the next part of the video, what I do with my European mounts. My next steps now is I'm gonna dry this, and I'm gonna let this sit out on my workbench. Overall, the head turned out really well. I think it's gonna be really good. I think it's gonna be a really good mount. I'm excited to continue on with the mounting process, but that is how you boil a deer head for a European mount. All right, guys, so real quick, the deer head has dried now for 2 days, and now I'm starting the bleaching process. Again, this is just to clean the skull, take out any smell, and it's very important. You want to pay really close attention. See if you can get to see this. You want to make sure that the antlers on either side are not in the water, or you will stain the antlers, because I leave this in the bleach water for 48 hours and we'll take the brownish color right off the antlers. Been there, done that. So for best results, I'm going to let this sit for 48 hours. We're going to uncover it in 2 days and see what it looks like, and I'll get into my next steps. I only use about, I bet there's 2 gallons, 2.5 gallons of water in this pot. I probably only used about a half a cup of bleach, so I just kind of eyeball it. Nothing's exact. Just a little bit of bleach goes a long way, and in 2 days you'll see a big difference. All right, guys, the skull is done drying from the bleaching process, so now I'm going to go ahead and start the painting process. Now, there is a ton of different ways to do a European mount, and some people just bleach the skull and leave the bone effect, and they like the bone white. Myself, personally, in this case, I hit it with just a gloss protective paint. It's called Canvas White. I got it at Lowe's, and I do all of my European mounts in this color so they all match. And I know that you can do hydro dipping and all kinds of things. You can find lots of different ways to do your skull, but I find myself liking the white the best. You can paint them whatever color you want, or you can leave them plain. But so I'm going to show and demonstrate how I do my canvas white painting. Something you want to be careful with when you're painting is you obviously need to get all the way up to the base of the antlers. So it's important to take some, I like to take plastic wrap around the bases, get it tucked up there as far as I possibly can, and then I go over it with a little bit of black tape or something that'll hold it on there, and then I start painting. And then while I'm painting, I have to be mindful of the direction I'm spraying, so I don't spray any overspray on the antlers, because you don't want to take away any of the beauty of the colors from that. And if you do get it on there, you need to get it off right away and inspect the antlers to make sure that you don't stain them with spray paint. Don't be impatient. Let this skull dry for 4 or 5 days to actually dry and actually harden. There's tons of little crevices and little nooks that take longer to dry, especially how you place your head. I had this thing for 48 hours laying face down, and now I flipped it up and over, and there's still moisture back here on like the back where the neck connects to the skull, and just some of these small spaces. So I still have another 2 days of drying. So just be mindful when drying. You don't want to start your painting process too early if you choose to paint like I do, because that can lead to a whole nasty mount, which you don't want at all. So just be patient, let it dry, give it the time, and then you'll be able to paint your final product if you choose. Otherwise, once you're done drying, you can just go ahead and hang it. All right, guys, as you can see now, I have my antlers cling wrapped, and it's just a little cling wrap like you'd wrap a sandwich in or something. And I just go around the base and I try to get as close as I possibly can. And I want to make sure I try to get it all covered up. Now, usually when I'm done with this, there's always just a little bit up top, like next to the base, that I'll kind of touch up with a Q-tip. I'll kind of go over that here in a little bit. I got my bases covered, taped, and my cling wrap is up my antlers a little bit, so I'm getting ready to do my first coat of paint. This skull's gonna get 3 coats of paint. That's just how I like to do it. Looks really good when it's all said and done. So we'll get a view after the painting, and she'll be ready to hang shortly after that, after it does a little bit more drying. I'll let you see the finished product when I'm all done, and we'll see how it looks. Time for a little spray paint. All right, the first coat of paint is complete. As you can see, my saran wrap worked perfectly. Had a little bit of overspray right there by the base, and it caught it. So 2 more times of painting. I just let this sit for about a day. So tomorrow evening, I'll come back out here, hit it again, do it again the next day, and I'll show you guys the finished product when it's all said and done. All right, guys, one last thing I want to touch on. So I took the plastic wrap off of the base of the antlers, and it did a really good job. However, there's a couple of little spots I need to touch up. So all I do is I just take a little Q-tip, take a couple of them, and I lay down a piece of paper, newspaper, any kind of junk paper, cardboard, and I spray a glob of paint in one spot, and then I just take the Q-tip, I roll around in it, kind of like a small little paintbrush, and I just go right up real carefully next to the base where the little plastic was covered, and I hit it, and I coat that 2 or 3 times till it matches everything else, and then I have no miss spots, and it looks clean and nice and exactly how it's supposed to. Alright guys, here is the finished product. After 3 coats of paint, I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. It looks really good all the way around, and this is going to be a great mount. So I just wanted to add a couple of things that I do to some of my mounts. So I went on Amazon and they have these European mount hangers. I think I got a 3-pack for like $18. So I know I'm going to have more in the future, so I just went ahead and got the bigger pack. But these things are pretty awesome. They come with drywall, anchors, and the screws, and then obviously the mounting device itself, just a little piece of metal with a little flare out. You can find these on Amazon. If that's the route you want to go, there's tons of endless options what you can do with these, but this is just what I did. Another thing I like to do is I take the arrow that I shot the deer with. Typically I only take the arrow if it's broken or busted. So this is actually an arrow from a different deer, actually from a doe that the arrow broke and it didn't mount. But just to show myself or to show others that I shot this with a bow, a lot of times what I'll do is I will place the arrow between the antlers when it goes on the wall. And then the mount looks something like that. Just a little added bonus feature. You don't have to do that. I just like to do that with my European mounts. Overall though, I would say this thing turned out super great. I'm so excited to give this to my dad because his deer again, and it just turned out really good. So I hope this video has been helpful for you if you are deciding to do a European mount this season or sometime in the future. Hopefully you can use this to reference and maybe it'll help you out. Good luck to all the hunters this weekend. It's going to be a great opening weekend here in Missouri. We got a massive cold front coming through. Really looking forward to it. There's going to be some great deer that fall this weekend, and I'm excited to see lots of pictures. Don't forget, we are doing a giveaway on our Facebook page for best deer picture. So if you just want to upload your photo and your deer and a little story about it to our Facebook page, you'll be entered to win a $25 gift card to Bass Pro and some Midwest Outdoor Experience goodies. So that contest ends January 15th, 2023. Feel free to enter if you choose. Good luck to everybody out there. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and we got more content coming. We'll see you in the next one.